Hi, everyone. Rex Saldana here, along with my good buddy Mark Stevens. Hi,
Hello. Hey,
Mark.
hey, it's great to be back.
Yeah, we're back with our first podcast, in about 6 weeks or so, right?
Yeah, it's been a while. Sorry,
Mm.
folks.
No, yeah. Well, life happens and we all get busy, and apparently we have an audience that's waiting for more podcasts. So
Oh,
here we are
cool.
doing them. Uh,
Yeah.
so this is going to be part two of Deep Cuts, which is one of the ones we did a couple of podcasts ago. But before we start with that, we wanted to talk a little bit, of course, about the big thing going on, which is the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction for Eurythmics, which is about a week away at this point. And a
Very
lot
ex-
of us fans are converging on LA next week, including myself and Mark and my partner Dave and Lynn and a bunch of other fans and Steve Gaylor and a bunch of other fans that are coming. And if I forgot some of the names, I apologize, you guys. But we're also looking forward to seeing one another and hanging out and experiencing this event that I think we've all been waiting for a long, long time. Right, Mark?
Yeah, it's going to be great, and I keep it's been so long coming, and then it was so frantic to get tickets the day we got tickets. We didn't know if we'd get them, and we all got them at different times, and we were all trying to get them, but it's going to be great. I think it's going to be the culmination of a lot of things, of course, for Dave and Annie to get this honor. But I think for fans, we kind of have this sort of like we've made it too. Does that make sense? I
Mm-hmm.
mean,
Yeah, exactly. It sort of feels like it's our victory too,
yeah,
even though we had nothing to do with
no,
well,
have
I
nothing to
suppose
do.
the fans did play a part. Is that the fans made them popular and successful, which is what's led to this. So, but yeah, I think it's a big thing for fans. Maybe even bigger for fans than it might be for Dave and Annie. But
That could be true. I mean, I think sometimes these things mean more to fans of any group or any artist.
yeah, well, it's
Um,
it's sort of a
or
recognition that your band is, one of the all-time greats.
Yeah, and that's nice to know. I mean, it is, and I'm very happy for Dave and Annie.
Yeah.
They've
I would
they've
also like to say that, just because you're not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame doesn't mean that you're not a great artist. There are many, many great artists who are not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and who should be. So just wanted to say that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but it's going to be fun to get together with people from all over the world, at
Yeah.
this event, at this concert, and really can't wait to meet people because so many of us, you and I, have met twice, three times, two or three times over the years, and we've known each other for since we first met in 1989.
Yeah.
So we've not seen each other very much, and some of these people who we've known on the fan boards, Facebook, etc. But I've never met them. I've never met Lynn, and Lynn and I are sitting together at the Lynn Foster, and we're sitting together at the concert
It's
because
great.
that's how we got our tickets. But we've never met. We've talked before, and I've known her from Facebook, and but we've never met. So there's all sorts of things exciting to come up.
Right, right. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and we kind of hope to maybe do some recordings with the fans there, and we'll present them in a podcast. Let's see. We're hoping to do that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that should be interesting. It shouldn't be hard to do. I think maybe just talk with fans use our phone, record their impressions of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the induction, Los Angeles, the whole thing. And yeah, we can easily put all that together and present it in a podcast. We'll have to obviously get these people's permission. Do you mind being on a podcast? They'll be like, no, of course.
on our podcast, which we should say something, Rex. You were showing me some of the stats earlier, and we were number two in Romania. Now, I don't know why we were number two with our podcast in Romania, and I really don't know why we were not number one. Our podcast.
And
And I really,
that was number one in music, not music commentary, right?
oh
So
yeah, true, yeah.
so
So
yeah. So
anyway,
hey,
all you
so
Romanians who are listening, we need you to listen a little bit more so we can be number one in Romania. So
not
anyway,
not to diss on Romania, but it's a small country, so it could just be one person over there listening. But
no, I think it's many, many people, Rex. Many, many people.
thank you to our Romanian fans. And
Anyway, so anyway, that's. But I'm looking forward to seeing you. I see you here. on the screen when we record these podcasts, but I'm
Well,
anxious to see you again. It's
we saw
been
each other at Annie and Sting because
and
you flew out to California for that,
and the nostalgia
and
concert.
we were there together for nostalgia. Yeah, so now we're here for the Hall of Fame induction. So yeah, great.
Seems like there's a certain thing that brings us together.
Yeah, what is that thing? It's some lady with short white hair and some guy with a guitar on him.
What a wonderful thing it is, really, all these people from all over the world that we've known each other, talked to each other, and it's all because of this music, and I think that's something really special. I do.
Right. And the music and the artistry, not the celebrity, not the personas, the music and the art. Okay, so let's start with our Deep Cuts Part 2. To be honest, folks, we couldn't remember which songs we had already picked. We don't think we're repeating anything, but we decided that if we screw up and repeat a song, you guys will let us know. So we'll just put it in the comments. Just put it in the comments.
And we're not going to say we can't remember because we're mid-50s or anything like that. Yeah. But we talk a lot about Eurythmics music and Annie Lennox music and Dave Stewart music. And so sometimes it merges together.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Well, you know what? You go first, Mark, with your first deep cut, or Part 2 deep cut.
Well, I think we focused a lot on, or maybe solely on Eurythmics the last time. So I wanted to make sure that we spread out a little bit. So my first deep cut is from Annie Lennox album, from Songs of Mass Destruction. And it's a song that was a bonus cut, I think, at least here, just if you got the Barnes and Noble special edition. Am I right on that? It's the song Don't Take Me Down. Don't Take Me Down. And I think it's an amazing song, and I can't figure out why it wasn't on the main album. And there's a lot of positivity to it, and I think that's the gist of the song, that, and that's why I think it fits really well on Songs of Mass Destruction. Just the name itself dictates that a lot of those songs, are, what's wrong with the world, the tough things in the world. And Don't Take Me Down is don't take me down with you, and it's this uplifting song. So I could see it being the final track on the album. And if not the final track on the album, maybe the final cut on, quote, side one, when we used to have side one and side two. But I could see it being that kind of, we've come through here, we've walked down that dark road, and all the things that it comes with that album, which I really love. And I think it's a very underrated album for Annie. I don't think it's probably her least successful solo album. And
one of her best.
Yeah, it is. It really, there's not a bad track on that album. But that song, Don't Take Me Down. So if you don't know it, look that up. You can find it somewhere, I'm sure. Yeah. At this point, you can find almost anything on YouTube these days. But I just think it's a great, uplifting anthem that you kind of need after kind of an album, or anyhow, because you can kind of get down into the mud of the despair of what that was supposed to be about. And I just love that song. It's very energetic. Everything about it. It totally fits Songs of Mass Destruction. It doesn't seem like it's an afterthought at all. It doesn't seem like it's just a throwaway something.
Right.
It's and how it came to be just for that special edition, I don't know. No one. I've never read anything about it. I've never heard Annie talk about it. Yeah. So.
Well, yeah, it's a great song, and it's got that rootsy feel. I think I agree with you. I think it's a great track, and but perhaps it wasn't on the album because it's somewhat similar to Ghost in My Machine, same kind of style, and
I can see,
like you were talking about the uplifting message, which is great. But the album's about songs of mass destruction. So maybe she felt it was too positive.
I don't know. Yeah, but anyway, I do agree with that on the a little bit of a comparison to Ghost in My Machine, which is probably my favorite song
Yes.
on that album.
Me too. Yes.
That song.
Should have been a single.
I could have been a single, should have been a single. So many times we say that. In my mind, it could have anyway. I can hear it on, and she did that so really. It's so great when she did it live. It was a great song.
I think part of the message in that song is about Katrina and New Orleans because she talks about being bruised and battered by the storm, and then the music is very reflective of New Orleans style.
Interesting. I hadn't thought of it.
The kind of bluesy New Orleans.
Yeah, she had some really good.
They're off here today, but you know what I'm talking about.
She had some really good Zydeco and stuff on that.
Yeah.
A really good selection of musical elements to that. Yeah.
I don't know that we had ever heard Annie branch out in quite that way, doing something so rootsy like that. And I kind of consider Don't, what is it called again? Don't
take me down. Don't take me down.
I get confused with Don't Bring Me Down, which wasn't that another B-side of hers, right? Or Don't Take Me Down, the Beatles cover.
Oh yeah, right.
Diva, yeah.
What was it? Walking on Broken Glass B-side?
Yeah. So, anyhow, okay. So we hadn't really seen her do that kind of style before, and it was very interesting and intriguing. And I personally, I think she should explore that further.
Well, I think she should explore anything further at this point.
Yeah, it's been quite a number of years since Nostalgia, the longest wait between albums that we've ever had from her.
Annie can do a polka album at this point. I don't care. Just give me something.
Gosh, God, hey, how about an album with all sort of different dance styles? Polka, waltz, I don't know. Anyhow.
Well, she did say many years ago she would have wanted to do a dance album, but I'm not sure she was thinking. But anyway, we'll see.
She also mentioned a heavy metal album and said, quote, "I can do it better than any of them," unquote. Yeah. Of course, she also said it was easy to be a heavy metal rocker. All you had to do was put on some jeans and sit in the bath. and let them get tight. Don't you remember that in that interview from We Two Are One era?
I do not remember that, but it sounds like something Annie would say at a certain time.
Kurt Loder was kind of shocked by that remark, I think. Anyhow.
All right. So that's my number one.
I'm sure it didn't go over well with heavy metal fans either, but
probably not. Well, okay, that's number one of my 5 picks. What's your first pick? Okay,
well, my number one, and these are not in any order of
Not any order. I didn't mean it that way.
But my first one is A Great Big Piece of Love, which is the kind of ambient instrumental B-side to Put a Little Love in Your Heart, the Annie Lennox Al Green Christmas single from 88.
88, yeah.
88, yeah, but A Great Big Piece of Love is just like a sonic assault to me. I mean, it's just, it starts with that everybody. And it's just such a, if you haven't heard it, it's kind of hard to describe. It's like one of their quirky B-sides. There's not a lot of singing. It's just a lot of sounds and little vocalizations and stuff. But I think it was sort of ahead of its time, really. Or one could say that it might have fit in well with 1984 or something like that. It sounds like it actually is progressed a little bit further than the sounds from 1984. I don't know anything about how it came about or what the point of it is.
But what's the really interesting thing about that? Who does it say the artist is? The spheres
of celestial influence. Yes, I forgot all about that. Thank you, Mark.
Which was one of the possibilities of the name of the band before they settled on Eurythmics. Oh. They made a very good decision that it was not the spheres of celestial influence. That would not have, if you thought Eurythmics was going to be hard to get the record company on board, I'm pretty sure. But
don't you mean the Eurythmics?
No. So, and two, I think, and I don't know why this is, but, Dave produced Put a Little Love in Your Heart. So I always thought that it was supposed to be Eurythmics and Al Green. And there was some sort of record companies couldn't agree kind of thing. So Dave could produce it and Annie could sing on it as Annie Lennox, but not as Eurythmics. Because, he's clearly involved.
Right.
And the B-side is clearly, in essence, it's kind of a nod to Eurythmics if you get the joke that
Right.
it was supposedly one of their names that they had considered for the band. But it is it's a great song with a lot of ambiance, kind of in the sense of everywhere, and it's a great and Annie and a great big piece of love, and these just sort of talking kind of ways. Yeah, I love that.
It does kind of sound like maybe something from Savage, like a little bit like Heaven, with all the broken up pieces and things like that. So it could be a continuation of that train of thought, or maybe it was something they had for Savage that they retooled or they didn't use. I don't know.
I've never thought about that, but that's actually a pretty good point, because
that actually just occurred to me on the spot.
Well, it was after Savage, and so
right.
They could have had some bits and pieces that he put together as a good B-side for that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really fit in anywhere. It's not like a continuation of that. Put a Little Love in Your Heart is a little bit of a holiday song, of course. It's not a Christmas song per se, right. But we certainly it comes across. We hear it, of course, at Christmas all the time, right. Because it is it's a great Christmas movie,
right? And the video is very, has all the Christmas scenes from the movie and all that. But yeah.
Love that song.
Yeah, I used to blare it in my car back in the late '80s as I was driving. It's a good song to blare while you're driving for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah,
driving.
There's nothing like blaring songs on your car radio. That's just the best.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think. Oh, yeah, that's right. I must have had the Casingle, because I'm thinking, how would I play that in my car? Yeah, it was the B-side on the Casingle as well.
Well, you go back to the Casingle, it was easier to listen to whatever the next song was than to rewind.
Right, exactly.
I've really hated cassettes. I hated cassettes. It's just the worst.
For a long time I thought they need to put out cassette singles, and then finally they did. And then when they did, it was like, I don't like this.
You get what you ask.
I'd rather have just the 45 or the album.
And then you can record it on your own cassette.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Okay. All right. You want me to go next with my number?
Go. Yeah, go.
So I'm going to go back to Eurythmics, but you won't find this on any Eurythmics album, on any Eurythmics 7-inch, any Eurythmics 12-inch. You find it on a video album, and it's the only place you find it, on the We 2 R1-2 video album, and it's Eurythmics performing Farewell to Tawathi. So it's an old Scottish song. It was written in the 1850s, I think, and it was based on an Irish song that it was taken. And Judy Collins, I believe. Judy Collins had recorded a version of it, very similar. None of these have changed too much from the original. But I really like that song, and I'm very partial to sort of those old Scottish sort of songs, and I just always loved this. And I made a recording of it years and years ago, as soon as I could, an audio recording, so I could have that. And I listen to it often, and it's interesting. On the Eurythmics video album and Laserdisc formats, whatever you're listening to it on, it's really misspelled. It's Tarwathie and Tarwathi, perhaps, but you don't really hear the R as much. But it says Tawathi on the sheet. But when you look it up, and when you research it, it's Tarwathie.
That's interesting.
But it's Dave on the guitar and Annie those songs are in her bones. Mm-hmm. When she sings she had a song on almost a children's album once. I'm not remembering it. Another Scottish, or sort of like a Dream Angus.
Oh, yes.
Do you remember that? And
yes.
So it's very much like that. And I like when she's doing that. And sometimes some fans have said over the years they wish she would do an album of traditional folk songs, or whatever proper word for them is. I don't know if folk's the right word, or traditional.
I could really see her doing that. I could see her doing that at some point, yeah.
I'd love for her to do, and that's just it, and maybe she doesn't want to write songs now. I mean, and I get that. But I'd love for her to do things like that. It wouldn't appeal to the mass audience,
Right.
but I think it would appeal to a lot of fans, and she does it so well.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
no,
and,
Sting did something similar like that. He's put out like albums of like, I don't know if it's Gaelic influenced
mm,
songs but he's done that kind of thing too. So, it's a thing artists do. So, yeah.
and I think she would take it very seriously. I think it would be much like a Christmas cornucopia.
I was just going to say that she would approach it the same way, and it would probably be the first album of Scottish traditionals that might be groundbreaking or progressive in some way, which is the way I feel about A Christmas Cornucopia. That
Yeah,
album is going to be appreciated more in 30 to 50 years than it is today.
yeah. It's a
It's
stunning
way
album,
ahead of its time.
and we'll be doing a podcast on that soon. But anyway, that's
Yes,
my next.
yes, we'll do a Christmas Cornucopia podcast for Christmas.
Yes, that's right. Looking forward to that. All right, what's your
But
next?
yes, like you're saying, it's in her bones, and she's made comments about how when she was a child she would sing and she could make people burst into tears. You
Mhm.
can totally see that when she sings this song. I mean, you can see, I mean, the emotion there. I mean, I almost burst into tears when she sings that song, and I
Yeah.
like the juxtaposition of when they're singing it and she's talking about hunting the whale, and
Hmm.
they're showing the footage from like they went to SeaWorld or something and they're in the shark tank
Uh-huh.
and the shark tunnel where the sharks swim around you or something like that, and
Yeah.
you see the sharks swimming and all that. So they're incorporating the tour footage with this song about whaling. And
It's interesting when I was researching the song a little bit before we did the podcast, and you go on YouTube and find Judy Collins, and she performs it, and the background music
mm,
is whale song. It's the song, the sound of whales, and she's using that
oh,
in the background while she's performing it. That's really interesting,
yeah.
So hunting the whales, yeah, pretty good.
Well, and of course, back at that time they were very heavily involved with Greenpeace, and
Mm.
so that ties into hunting whales, and
Yeah.
is it right, is it wrong, and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, so great track. Um, it's kind of short, right? It's not like they do the whole song or
Well, they may. I don't know how long the
yeah,
song it really is. It's a short song, and but it's effective. That's for sure.
very
Okay.
effective. Yes, I still remember the polka dot shirt she's wearing.
Yeah.
All right, so my next deep cut is ABC Freeform, Touch B-side. A lot of people are probably going to go, what?
And some people were like, "Yeah."
I remember playing this song and some of their B-sides to my friends back in the day, and the collective response was, what is this? And why would you buy it? Well, I'll answer that question right now. It's avant-garde, just experimental, and it thrilled the hell out of me. Yeah, it's just somebody singing the alphabet, over a musical background, but that's very avant-garde. And I love avant-garde art. I'm a big fan of artists like Yoko Ono. So it's just natural for me to like avant-garde things. If I say avant-garde one more time, you can go ahead and just slap me. But
Well,
I just love it. I just love experimentation like that. I mean, because you can see that if you're an artist, you're in the studio, you're doing your songs, but yeah, you're also going to experiment with sounds. You're going to do things if you're of that persuasion, which I think obviously Dave and Annie are. And it's just great. It's so, to me, it's so free. It's like, just do what you want and leave it up to everybody to interpret it.
Well, Freeform. I said, "Hey, yeah."
Yeah.
So I will not say that it's one of my favorite B-sides from that era because it takes a lot to get into that song. But it is interesting, and that's the fun thing about it. And that what you get from that is when Dave and Andy were really just experimenting. They were saying, "What can we do? What are we going to do with this sound? And what are we going to do? Let's add this, and let's add some talking here." And it's a really fun time for them.
Well,
And
yeah, and this is something they seem to like to do. This like counting down the ABCs and counting down numbers. We've seen that in several of their songs. is it She's Invisible Now, where they're counting down 10, 9. Is that the right one? And then, of course, the same thing in Shame. There's that 1, 2, 3. You with your brand new shoes and all that. And I don't know. It's rhythmic. Eurythmics. It's rhythmic, and it's I'm going to say it again. It's avant-garde, and I love it.
a good piece. Well, I'm going to segue into another of my picks, and this is a perfect segue. Eurythmics, Step on the Beast. Same sort of era. We're doing this. And there's two different versions of Step on the Beast. There's a B-side from The Walk, and then there is a version on the cassette that came with the Right by Your Side single. And they're totally different versions, very much the same, but totally different versions in their own right. And I sort of, and the cassette version is, you get a sense that it is a later version, because it would have come out clearly much later in the sense of time, that it would have been a B-side for The Walk, which would have been 82, and then by the time that it makes the cassette, we're in 83. But I really love Step on the Beast, and I'll call it the remixed version that's made the cassette, and they have like a male Jamaican person singing, talking more. Yeah. And he says, as it comes in, he says, "Listen to this, brothers and sisters." And Annie you hear Annie doing a lot of the vocalizations, halfway down again, and I can't get up. And there's at one point she's saying again and again and again and again and again. And here it comes again. And that's such a refrain from Annie throughout her career. So many songs where here it comes again, which here comes the rain again, she says that. Here comes that sinking feeling, she says that. And she's very much, and Dave, they often talk about the again, about the repeat of something. And you can kind of get a sense of their mentality and the sense of how they think when you hear things where they repeat things like that. But that's a really groovy little song. And, unlike a lot of the B-sides, I could really have seen Step on the Beast actually being on the Sweet Dreams album. Truthfully, I think it fits there in both incarnations. There's really the background of the song is the same in both. It's all there. And the original version sort of starts out with a drum beat, not quite like Beethoven, but very similar. Boom, 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 boom. And you don't get that quite as much on the remix version. So you've got this, the guy talking and stuff, and he talks throughout the song. Yeah. But I could have seen that on Sweet Dreams. It really, to me, it fits in where most of their B-sides early on were really, I'm going to say it, avant-garde. It was a little more pop, I think. So I think it's probably the most accessible of their B-sides. Is why I think it could have been, it could have easily been on the album. Great song. It's a great song.
I would agree that's probably one of their most accessible. And those and the ones from We Two Are One are pretty accessible too. But yes, you're right. I mean, I could have heard that on the Sweet Dreams album. It's sort of like, like Heaven on Savage or something like that. It would have worked just fine. And I don't think we would have thought like, oh, this shouldn't be on here. We would have just thought, there it is. Now, where do you think it should have been on the album? Like towards the end, or?
I hadn't thought of it that far.
Or maybe the very last cut.
Somewhere on the B side of the album.
Maybe not the last track, because that would kind of imply that, I don't know, like, don't take it as seriously or something.
Maybe that's why it's not on the album. They couldn't figure out where to put it on the album. That's it. It would have fit though. It would. Oh, but I wouldn't have wanted anything left off the Sweet Dreams album for it to be on it. So, that would be tough.
Yeah,
but that's clearly because it, they used it on two different releases in one sense. So, and they kept playing with. That was the cool thing about 82 and 83. that they have a lot of different versions of some of their songs.
Right.
So they kept experimenting with them. And that's the really exciting thing. Because as things went on and as they got so successful, you know, and as we all said before, they had an album a year and a tour most of the time. And then all of the press they had to do and had flying around the globe in different countries. They didn't, they didn't have the time to experiment like they did before they were, quote, famous.
Yeah.
And so, and that's what comes with success. You know, you're going to, you won't be able to do all the things that you once did. Not that they still weren't creative, of course they were, but those early days when, you know, half the day wasn't taken up by press interviews or whatever, they were in the studio just turning things, you know, turning knobs and singing and playing instruments and seeing, hey, what can we do with this?
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, well, that's one of the reasons why we love them so much.
All right, back to you, Rex. Back to you.
All right. This isn't really a deep cut. It's Beautiful Child from the Peace album. It wasn't a single. You know, I don't know if you don't have Peace, you probably haven't heard it, but I just like it so much. And I seem to be liking it more and more the older I get. I don't have children, so it's not that suddenly I have children and I like it better. It's just, I guess, as you grow older and more mature, you appreciate that kind of thing. But other than the theme of the song, just musically, I just think it's brilliant. I love that strumming guitar. It almost sounds like rain falling or you know, and her voice and the lyrics, and it doesn't burn when you touch the sun. And it's just a great song. It's just again, the number one reason I loved them from the beginning was I just thought they were great songwriters. Number one, to me, that's the thing. And I just think it's a great song, and it gets better and better with age. It's the kind of song you might have heard in 1999 and thought, well, you know, they have children, so they're expressing that, and that's great. But for me, it's really kept resonating over the years, and even more so now. I just think it's a great song. And when they did it live a couple of years ago for that charity thing, that was nice too.
And that was such a shock too, that they went to this song that really is in essence a deep cut on that album. They didn't perform it when they, you know, went out on tour. So it was a song that was sort of, you know, the very essence of a deep cut, you know. And it's not a song that I gravitated to in the beginning. Right. And we've said this many times in different, when we did a whole podcast on the Peace album. You know, we talked about that then, but a lot of those songs have aged really well, and I've aged along with them, and I've discovered them again. And that song is one of them. And at first I didn't identify with it. And I don't identify with it now in the sense of children, I don't think, because I mean, I also don't have kids, but there's some great lyrics in that. Right. And the music is so good, and it fits so wonderful on that album. It's such a lush album with really great strings, and musical ability that you've got there. And I think that's a really strong track on that album. And it was such a thrill to have them perform that for that special back during COVID when they were on different sides of the world or whatever and performing, which was cool in itself.
I just realized something as you were talking that, you know, I mentioned that his guitar sounds like rain falling. That strumming kind of sounds like rain falling. Well, the lyric is, you know, the tears come down, you know, the way you hang your head. So I just realized that. That's interesting. Huh.
Oh, well, yeah. So that's really cool.
And of course it was written about Django, right? Because he was, they noticed him looking through a window or something, and Annie or Dave made the comment of beautiful child or something. And that's where she got it. She saw him crying, or not necessarily crying, but kind of looking sad. Yeah. And that's how she started that, which is really great. Yeah. That comes from that, you know, whenever an adult sees a sad child, there's always a little bit of like, you know, unless something really terrible is happening, and unless a child is just being a child and they're sad, there's always something a little humorous about it. Maybe this is coming from someone that doesn't have kids, but like when they pout or when they throw a little fit, like when you see a kid do that, like in a public place, I always find it amusing. Other people are like, "Shut that kid up," but
Well, I don't think that was what was exactly happening in this. That
no. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. That's she might have been taken by the look, and that's why she wrote those lyrics.
And I forgot. Dave told me that story when I interviewed him. He had his his second album out with Stuart Lindsay. That really great second album. And I interviewed him. It was during COVID, and it was, of course, on the phone. And he was in Bahamas. And somehow, the Peace album came up, and he talked about that. And he told me how that song came about, and I never knew that. And I asked him at the time. I'm sure I probably said this on one of the other podcasts, but I said, "Well, did your son ever know that song's about him?" He said, "Yes." So, and isn't it? Let's just say real quick how cool it is that all of Dave's kids are all musicians in their own right and doing really well. And of course, Annie's daughter Lola is, and her other daughter Tally is a great artist. Mm-hmm. But it must be, and they're so proud of their parents, and I think that's a wonderful thing. And I still would love to see a tour with Dave and Annie and their kids along the way on it. The next generation of Eurythmics. I think that'd be really cool. But
that would be very
cool that their kids have turned out. It seems really great and talented, and they all from both sets talk about how great their parents have been to them and how inspiring their parents have been, and I think that's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, I do too. I should go back and clarify what I said earlier about sad children. I think, when you see a child in that way, when she saw him and, part of you goes, oh, you think, oh, the poor little dear. And so you feel a little bit of like, what's the right word? You're not, it's kind of like you feel a little sad for them, a little sorry for them, but yet you also know it's no big deal because they're a child,
Oh, I see what.
Yeah, so I think that's where that kind of came from, and she probably thought, oh, the way your head hangs down, and oh, you poor little thing, you're so cute, and I don't mean in a condescending way. I just mean like in that way that adults look at children when they're acting a certain way,
Yeah, and they know that they just need comforting and that kind of thing.
Exactly.
And like you said,
and it's precious and it's sweet,
Well, and like you said, it's the amazing thing about kids, when we're kids or we see, they can fall down and skin their knee and they're crying, and then literally within 1 second, you can change their whole perception. And
wouldn't that say ice cream and suddenly they stop crying,
Well, hey, listen, any of us, you take me to get ice cream, and you're going to change my attitude really quickly. So. It doesn't change that far when we're adults.
Oh, I guess you're waiting for your McDonald's holiday pies, huh?
I am.
I know that's a big thing every year.
Goodness gracious, how did that get on this podcast?
I don't.
Yes. No, I'm obsessed.
Information.
I am obsessed with more things than Eurythmics. Trust me.
Me too.
Yes. So, but
contrary to what anybody might think, my whole life is not Eurythmics. It might have been in the 80s.
No, only 99% of my life revolves around Eurythmics. That's it. Yeah, that's all. Yeah. All right. Well, you mentioned rain in your last commentary here, so I'm going to move on to my next pick, and it involves rain, and it's a track from Dave Stewart's latest album and box set. Ebony McQueen, which if you don't have, he's got some really amazing songs. It's 27 tracks, I think it is. And the song that I'm talking about is Waiting for the Rain. Mm-hmm. And I think it's track 22 or something on that. And I think it's a really great ballad. And he does a great job. And I was talking to my friend Bob McCraney, who's a big Eurythmics fan in Texas. And he said, you know what? He said, the music sounds very much, or the melody sounds very much like The Miracle of Love and to him. But if you get the box set, by the way, it's got sheet music for for this song, but Waiting for the Rain. And so I wanted to kind of talk about that song in the sense that I think it's you don't often, with Dave's songs, you don't necessarily get a traditional ballad, and
Right.
and I think that one is, and it starts. The lyrics are always waiting for the rain. Can't see the sunshine for the pain. Everybody feels the same. They're just looking for their star. That's how it concludes. And I listened to that when I got the box set, in addition to the title track, which is such an earworm. It's just, I love Ebony McQueen, the song, so much. But the other song that I gravitated toward very much so was Waiting for the Rain. And Dave has a really good penchant for being able to take, strip stuff back and have this really beautiful ballad. And it's a real favorite of mine. And his voice is really great on it. The music's great. And I just identify with, and I looked it up once, and because, as everyone knows, if you've listened to this podcast, Here Comes the Rain Again is my favorite song of all time.
And me too. And me too.
I'm really drawn to songs about rain, and there's a word for it, and I'm forgetting it now, and I don't have it in front of me. So, but people who are sort of drawn to the idea of rain, there's something about it. There's something that can be sad about rain, but there's also something that can be uplifting about it. And so anyway, a Dave Stewart song, Waiting for the Rain, is one of my favorite, and I would say deep cuts. Track 22 out of 27 is a sort of a deep cut. Yeah.
It's a great song. We should point out that Ebony McQueen, the album, is just amazing. I mean,
oh yeah,
you just said great songwriting, and his singing is great. Infectious hooks. I think he just posted something recently, like today or yesterday, where he was a little film of him singing Ebony McQueen, and he made the comment that it sticks to you like white on rice or something. And it's true. I mean, that melody is just, you hear it one time and you're singing it like over and over.
Yeah.
But to go back to the song you picked, yes, that's a great song, and I agree with everything that you say about it. I would urge everybody to get that album. I'm sure a lot of the big fans have bought it, but if you haven't gotten it, it's really worth it. It's an opus, and it's so well done, and the instrumentation and the music is just fantastic. And it grows on you. It grows on you. It gets more and more you listen to it, the better it gets. Yeah,
and they're very different songs too. It's not one kind of style, it's
exactly.
Very Dave Stewart piece, because he's doing different things, and his voice often, I think, on his solo stuff, as always, he's got a fine voice, but I think his voice is as good on this as it's ever been, and even this particular song, it's very. You just hear it it's so strong. He's got a really strong voice on it, and he doesn't have to be yelling or something, because he's not. It's a ballad, but everything works with it, and I love it.
I would say it's probably. I've really liked all of the stuff Dave has put out as a solo artist, but my favorite stuff was the Spiritual Cowboy stuff and Vegas, and I think even though Ebony McQueen, you can't really say sounds like Spiritual Cowboys or Vegas, but it's kind of in that same, to me, it's in that same thing where it's, where he just is really on fire, and he's like focused, and he knows what he's doing, and it's resulted in a great set of songs, a cohesion thing. And of course, it's going to be a stage play and all that, which is going to be very interesting.
Well, I probably would say my favorite, other than Ebony McQueen, my favorite Dave solo stuff is the stuff he did in Nashville. And if I had more tracks, I bet I would have, because he's got some great ballads and duets on stuff that he did in Nashville. And that's the thing about Dave. Whatever he's doing, he's putting 110% in it. And you can tell. everything about it, the creativity, who he brings in with him to record, to sing with, whatever it is. It's 110%. It always has been.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's what goes back to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I'm so pleased for them because they really put everything of their being into music throughout their careers, whatever it was, Eurythmics or solo or with other people.
Yeah.
They did, and it's thrilling to see that.
Yep, it sure is. Yeah, the Nashville stuff that Dave did, it was so great to hear him doing that kind of stuff, that more country infused kind of thing. I would love to see Annie do something. We're talking earlier about have her do. We like to see her do more rootsy stuff. I'd like to see her go. Do a. Well, the King and Queen of America can be sung in a country western kind of way.
Well, I still say "Who's That Girl" could easily be a country song.
Well, any song can be a country song if you twang it up, right?
You twang it up. Well, Reba McEntire wanted Annie to sing on her duets album, but Annie was making songs of mass destruction at the time and declined.
I didn't know that.
That could have been. Reba McEntire is a huge fan of Annie Lennox, and so it would have been very interesting. She's a huge country superstar, really, and quite the singer too.
So now that Annie's a bit older and she's doesn't really have much left to prove in terms of an artist, I think it's time for her to maybe start doing some duets with people like Reba McEntire.
It would have. I would love to see her do a duets album.
Yeah. I would love to see a duet with her and Lady Gaga.
I think people would go Gaga over that, for lack of a better term.
And a duet with Adele, although they might sound too similar there. I'm not sure, but
that's okay because sometimes it fits. Aretha and Annie, their voices were perfectly matched up.
I still find it interesting to this day that was offered to Tina Turner, and she said no because she thought it was too feminist. That's
well, maybe at the time it didn't seem like the right thing for her, but it all worked out the way it should have. So
maybe because of Tina's history with Ike and all that, maybe
she just thought it was anyway. Well, what's your next?
Some duets from Annie with others would be most welcome, I think. Not that we're recommending that or anything. We're just talking out loud. Okay, so my last deep cut is "Something in the Air," which is their cover of the Thunderclap Newman song from 1969, and it's it's one of the B-sides from the remastered albums that came out in 2005. It escapes me now which album it's on, but it's on one of them. And it's "Something in the Air," and it's just a great song. It's just a great pop song. It's been covered by a lot of people. I don't know if a lot of people know that I think it was Pete Townsend had some kind of involvement in putting together the band Thunderclap Newman, who did this song "Something in the Air." And it wasn't a big hit in the UK. It only got to like 50 something. In the US, it got to like, I don't know, top 20 on like album cuts or something. So very weird. And it wasn't a song that I was familiar with until Eurythmics did it. But I've gone back and I've listened to the original versions, and it's just a great pop song, and it's perfect for the late 60s and all that. And I just like it. So there we go.
Love that song. And here's another. It was on the Peace remaster. That's where they put it. It was originally recorded for the TVP project that never happened, of course. I would say that's one of my favorite of the TVP songs. Last Night I Dreamt That Somebody Loved Me, a great song that they did. But I love Something in the Air. And here's the interesting thing. Notice the mistake on the CD where it's referred to as "Something in the Air Tonight," which is Collins song. But you kind of hard to. I
forgot about that. Yes,
Phil Collins song is so it's just in your head. Everybody knows it's "Something in the Air Tonight." Or is it Genesis or Phil Collins?
think it was Phil Collins.
Anyway, so but whoever you're talking, something in the air, and you just want to say tonight.
You just want to say exactly. And I think when I was compiling my little list of songs for today, I was like, something in the air tonight. And wait a minute, no, it's not. But yeah, you're right about that. Yeah.
But I love the part, bring out the instigators, and and there's sound of gunfire or laser fire or whatever it might be for that particular song. But I think it's one of the better songs from TVP. I think it sounds, and I've said this before, I think a lot of the TVP songs, to me, some of them sound kind of like really early versions of a song. What do you call that? But it sounds. Do what?
Like demos, you mean? Or
yeah, a demo. I thought some of them seemed a little demo-ish, that they weren't quite complete.
Yeah, and I think, and they're probably not.
Yeah, but I think Something in the Air always seems like a very complete song to me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. One thing about the TVP songs is when I first heard them on the remasters, I was struck by how modern they sounded. They didn't sound like they were from 1987 or 88. Of course, none of their music sounds dated. But I guess what I'm trying to say, when I heard them on the remasters, I thought, did Dave go in and shine these up a bit or something, or do some, or did Annie come in and do some additional vocals or something? But I think we asked Dave about that, and he said no, they were just the way they are. So I was really struck at how even in 2005, this was 20 years later, they sounded like they could have been recorded yesterday, in 2000.
Well, and the TVP project was supposed to be set in the future too, so I don't know if they purposely, but I don't think, they don't sound futuristic where it would get cliched.
No.
But you're right. The thing is,
they didn't sound like they were from the 80s. They sounded like, oh, this could have been done yesterday.
And it could just be me because I've internalized them so much since 1983. But I don't think their music has dated. It never sounds dated. But again, it could be me that, I remember a certain time. But I think most of their music, at the very least, transcends sounding like an era.
Right.
And so, yeah. But no, good.
What I Lied to You is a perfect example of that. If you didn't know anything about Would I Lie to You and nothing at all, would you think it came from the 80s? I think that's just a testament to their songwriting and their production and the way they approach how they create music, that it does sound timeless. Oh, I was saying about Would I Lie to You. If you didn't know anything about that, would you think it came from the 80s?
Right.
Maybe. You might think late 60s, but that's what I mean. It's got a timeless sound, and even something like Missionary Man, it's like 70s, 80s. It's you can't really label it, and that's what I like about it.
No, I think that's the good thing about it, that it doesn't. And I think part of it was too that each album had a different kind of sound and a different way of doing it. So there wasn't this exact sound that stuck with them. They came and did something different every time. Yeah. So it wasn't this long drawn out decade of the same music. And had they done that, they probably would sound dated. Mm-hmm. But because it changed every album, it defies the time period. Because so much of that time period did sound the same. Because for the most part, artists are afraid to change how they sound, and they weren't going to do that.
Right. Yeah, well, Annie made that comment. If we had to make the same songs over and over again, it would just kill her, And I agree. I mean, I wouldn't want to hear that anyways.
Right.
Even her solo stuff, it sounds timeless. I mean, Walking on Broken Glass, Why, that could be anywhere. I still think it was a triumph that we're having a little pet issue here, but no, I still think it was a triumph that No More I Love Yous was such a big hit, especially in the US. That's a 5-minute long song with a weird structure. It's just very odd. How on earth did American radio programmers play that? I guess it was because of the success of Diva was, but
because
it's a great song. Don't get me wrong. I mean,
No, it's an
and
amazing.
and they can recognize that when they hear it. But it is odd for the radio. It's long. It's got a weird structure, and it's
Did
got
it? It,
the little talking parts and all that.
it never had an edited, like a single edit.
No, no, it was as and that's, I mean, the radio programmers took it as it was. They played it just as it was. They didn't. There wasn't a shorter version. There wasn't a radio edit. So I always think that was a triumph. Just like I think it was a triumph that Touch was such a big album. That's probably one of the most commercially avant-garde albums ever.
There's
And I
that
just said it again, avant-garde. Avant-garde.
So if anyone, you can re-listen to this and have a drinking game every time Rex says avant-garde or avant-garde, and by the end of it, you're very, very, very drunk.
I'm gonna say it so much I'm gonna take all like relevance out of it. Yeah.
Anyway, well, that leads to me and my final song, correct? So I'm back with the rain. I'm back with the rain. Now it's Annie Lennox, Nostalgia, and September in the Rain. And it's my favorite song on Nostalgia, without a doubt.
Absolutely. Me too, actually. Me too.
And you and I were at the Orpheum, a theater, when she recorded her a PBS special where she did the whole album live. And that live version, and not very often does Eurythmics or Annie Lennox songs move me to tears. That just does not happen. I'm emotionally drawn to it in a different kind of way. Right. But her live version of September in the Rain it takes me to tears, because she hits these notes on and it's an amazing song. And the lyrics, to every word of love I heard you whisper, the raindrops seem to play a sweet refrain. Though spring is here, to me it's still September. That's September in the Rain.
I know.
And I forget who wrote the song. I'm sorry, I should have looked that up. And of course, it's a song on Nostalgia, so it's an older song. But man, that's gorgeous songwriting, because you see, you know what the person singing is talking about. There was this great moment because the song is set in the spring, not in the fall, and you're thinking back on this one moment in September when it was all about love, and there was someone with you, and you were in the rain, and you were in love, and you're remembering that time. And the song goes on, and and this is so Annie Lennox, and I bet this is why she was drawn to the song, because it's not all happy. Eurythmics and Annie Lennox songs, they're not all happy. There's an element to it, but it's not all there. And there's this song, the lyric, the sun went out just like a dying ember, that September in the Rain. So the love was extinguished at some point. And the singer, in this case, Annie, finishes the song, but she still remembers that time. And we all have that. We all have those great moments in time. Fill in the blank. It can be love, or it can be a special moment that you think back. But that song is gorgeous. Now, I will say this. The album version is very mellow. But when she performed it live, and she kicked in after the bridge, and it's just stunning. I really wish she had done the album version more like that, because it was very mellow, and it came through very, very light and lush. But I just think that's a great song, and I just think it's
you're right. I mean, the first time I heard the album, that song immediately stuck out for me, and I cry when I hear that song, or I have cried when I cry when I hear a lot of the songs on that album, especially You Belong to Me. Yeah. And I know all these songs. I'm familiar with the original versions, but of course it's her voice and the way and the way the arrangements are and all that. At the Nostalgia Grammy Museum event that she was at, and I got to spoke with her for a little while, and I told her point blank, I said, if you want to see a grown man cry, just watch me listening to Nostalgia. And
Oh,
she shook her head like she understood, like she knew, like, yeah, I mean, it's a very emotional album, especially if you're sipping whiskey while you listen to it.
I know you enjoy doing that. So,
But I love nostalgia. I mean, I just love it. I think in my opinion, it is the best vocals we've heard from her on record. I mean, her vocals are stunning on that album, just stunning. Um, and I love the arrangements and the spare piano arrangements. It's just, I just love it.
again, a somewhat, I mean, it was very successful.
Yeah.
But I think somewhat underrated. And, and I will admit, I wasn't sure when I heard that's what she was going to do with her next album, back in the day. And I'm like, oh, I don't know about that. But it was a surprise because she did pick songs that fit her emotions so well, and they are very emotional songs, and they're love songs, and the love songs that come with it. That they're not always, that doesn't mean it's a happy-go-lucky song. Not
Right.
all love songs are. I mean, just like I said, there's this element to it, the dying ember. Oh my gosh! But
Mhm.
yeah, it's a
I,
great
rem-
song. Great song.
I
Could have been.
remember not long after the album came out, or I don't know if it was the first year or the second year, but it was September, and I was driving to work, and I had that song on, and it started raining while I
Yeah.
was driving, and I started crying.
Mhm.
And I get to work, and like everyone's like, "What's the matter? Are you all right?" I'm like, "No, no, I'm fine. Everything's fine. I just listened to a song." And they were like, "You're crying from listening to a song?" I'm like, "Sorry." But
Well,
that song is so emotional, and then it started raining, and it was like, okay, I'm already on the brink of tears as it is.
well, I'll tell a very personal story here then, since you did. But it reminds me of a time, and my wife Amy and I, we were at Walt Disney World, and we were on the other side, and like often happens in Florida, you are from Orlando, Florida, so you remember this very distinctly. It rains a lot in the afternoon because it's so hot and humid, and it was one of those rainstorms where it wasn't thunder and lightning. We ended up walking back to our hotel in this deluge, in this rain, and it's one of our favorite memories. Um, just because you're in this, and it's not cold rain, it's warm rain, so you're not freezing or something. But we're totally drenched, but it's this happy memory from a happy place. And so, and it would have happened in the fall. It would have most likely been in September. So I always think about that too when I'm listening to that song, because it was just this.
Oh, that's sweet. I'm sure Amy. Have you told Amy that?
I don't know. I
You
don't
should
know.
tell her that. Yeah, yeah.
But again, you go back to these moments in time, which is what this song is about. These moments in time that you think back, and whatever it may be. But it's so well done, and so I'm not surprised at all that she picked that song.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you've ever been separated from someone you're in love with, separated by miles or circumstance, you know that feeling of that aching feeling.
Yeah.
And that's what the song cap. I mean, what was the lyric about? It's spring, although it's spring. To me, it's still September.
Yeah.
Like you brought up, and yeah, that's
Well,
Annie Lennox. You make me cry with nostalgia. Seriously,
all right.
and in a good way. In a good way.
So there's our 5 new deep cuts. So, and everyone needs to weigh in on what all your 5 deep cuts would be. Annie, Dave, Eurythmics, doesn't matter. So let's hear about it.
Yeah,
Right?
I'm sure we'll have people that agree with us, and some that, and that's great. I love hearing people's different opinions. Like, oh, I agree with you on that one, and I like hearing things like, no, I don't like that one because
Mhm.
I find it very interesting. I like to hear different perspectives. Okay, why don't you like that song?
Mhm. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
sometimes somebody will say them, and you'll realize they have a point. I still like it, but they have a point. And
Yeah.
that's good. I mean, it's
Yeah.
good.
None of this is the gospel of Rex and Mark, and that you can't you can't you can't you must agree. We don't expect you to. So that's the joy of it.
Gospel according. Anyhow, yeah. So we look forward to getting the feedback on this, and we're really looking forward to meeting the fans. that show up for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame next week in LA. We've already got plans to get together with everyone and do things. So yeah, it's going to be fun. And the next time we do a podcast, this will most likely be post their induction. So
yeah. All right, it's going to be a fun time. I can't wait to see.
I'm sure the next podcast will probably most likely be all about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame experience, including our little interviews with the fans if they want to speak with us.
Yeah, hoping so. Yeah, I can't wait to see you. I can't wait to meet some of these people that I've just known as a little avatar or whatever you call it, online.
I know. Yeah, I know it'll be great to see you again too. So yeah.
I'm not making this up, but I'm as looking forward to meeting everybody and spending time with other fans as I am just the concert, because the whole thing to me is the whole thing is part of it. Meeting everybody and hanging out and talking and being part of and just being able to talk after the show. That's going to be fun. So that's going to be great. Can't wait. Can't wait to see you.
Yeah, likewise. All right, everybody. Well, take care until next time. And, congratulations to Eurythmics on their induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And you'll hear all about it soon.
All right. See you.
All right. Bye.